Hi, my name's Adam, and I'm going to introduce you to the game of Tawlbwrdd, and it's the Welsh variant of the ancient Norse game of Tafl, and it is actually recorded in historical documents. There's a gentleman by the name of Robert Opifon, who documented this game with a drawing and a manuscript dated from the 16th century, from the year 1587, and this is played on a board that's 11 by 11 squares, and there's 12 pieces on the king side, and then the king makes 13, and then there's 24 pieces around the board on the opponent's side, the attacker's side. And I just want to go over the rules of the game. So this is how it was set up, and then he also, in his manuscript, he described the rules. And I can go over, I'll read the English translation of the Welsh, and then sort of show what he's talking about. So he states, the above Tawlbwrdd should be played with a king in the center. This is the king right here, and 12 men in the places next to him, and 24 men seek to capture him. These are placed 6 in the center of each side of the board, and then the 6 central positions. So that's the setup, and he showed this exact diagram here. And he said, and 2 move the men in the game, and if one piece belonging to the king comes between the attackers, he is dead and is thrown out of the game. So we could just stop there. He said one of the pieces comes between the attackers, so again, he's just explaining custodial capture there, which would be that. And the same if one of the attackers comes between 2 of the king's men in the same manner. So that's all these pieces here. So if this piece was here and then it comes down here, he's between 2 there, and that's for either side. It's not diagonal. Pieces don't jump over other pieces and things like that. So then he states, and if the king himself comes between 2 of the attackers, and if you say watch your king before he moves to that space, so you know, if you say when he lands here, oh, watch your king, because I have, you know, I can make a second one. So if the king's captured like any of the other pieces, he says, and he is unable to escape because there's 2 around him, then you capture him. Then he's captured with 2. And but he states that if he goes between the 2, then he's safe. So he said there is no harm. And then the last sentence is how the king wins. And he states that if the king can go along the, and then there's an illegible word, but then he says line, that side wins the game. So it's with the other historical document that explains another game of Tafl called Tawlbwrdd, the escape was to the side. So it's assumed that he means this line. Some people who think that the game should be played to the corner, and this is a very important point to make. A lot of people like to think that the game's too easy to get to the side, and I think that that's demonstrably false. And my videos show that. This video series here especially, I would like to refer people who think that edge escape is unbalanced when it is actually a balanced game. Either if the king doesn't capture and is surrounded on 4 sides, or if the king is, as in this game, is captured by 2, and then he's able to capture. The king is also able to capture pieces, because he doesn't say otherwise. And anyway, people think that this is going to, that it's assuming that it goes to the corner, but there's a big problem with that, and that is what I just read to you is Robert Opifon's complete description of the game. He doesn't say anything else. That's it. And if you assume that he's talking about playing to the edge, and he just kind of said it sort of in an awkward way, but kind of not really. Some people just kind of interpret it a different way. If you assume that he's talking about escaping to the edge, then the rules that he just gave, that I just read, they're complete, and they make for a balanced game. Whenever you know how to use the strategies that I explain in the video series, this other video series. But if you're assuming that he said he meant to go along the line, I mean going along the line to the corner, he never says corner anyway. In his diction, he never said the word corner. But if you're assuming that he goes to the corner, then the rules that he gave, they're incomplete. They're grossly incomplete. There's a lot of he doesn't say what the obvious problem is moving a defender to the corner. He didn't mention that. What happens? Is he allowed to move to the corner? The game would be kind of quickly over. Well, what if he is allowed to go to the corner? What if he's allowed to go to the corner? And this game may have been based on Tafl may have been based on a game of Ludus Truncalorum, a Roman game, and pieces were allowed to land on the corner, and you would capture them by this way. Whenever you land, then he's gone. So, how do you capture a piece on the corner? Do you capture them like that in Ludus Truncalorum, or some people suggest that no one can land there at all, but then the problem is, well, then I'm just going to put my pieces here. Now nobody can capture me, and nobody can land there. The king can't land there. Well, so then they made up another rule. Well, now if a piece lands here, then this piece will act as another white piece, and it's taken. So you see how there's at least 3 more rules that you need to play the game from what he described. And you can't just assume that it's how people nowadays play corner Tawlbwrdd, because like I said, there's different ways of addressing a piece that lands there. Is it Ludus Truncalorum rules? Is it the rules that are used now in a lot of game sets that include rules that they say play to the corner, and that this piece acts as another piece? So anyway, basically my point of all that is that it's a really important point to make, is that he's obviously talking about playing to the edge, and playing to the edge is a balanced way to play. And I'm just going to start now by going over, doing a brief overview of what I explained in great detail in this series. It's a series of 11 videos, soon to be 12, because I'm going to show some more sample games of this series called Tawlbwrdd, Edge Escape is Balanced. You can apply the same things here to this here, and I'm just, from right now, this point forward, in this video, I'm just going to give a brief overview of the points covered here. And the first thing is black strategy. You want to utilize pawn structures, because you don't want to utilize any kind of double or quadrupled pawns. You want to make pawn chains which are diagonals, because the pawn chains they'll hinder your opponent's pieces. They're harder to capture in diagonal formations, and they're easier to defend. And all your pieces will keep the highest amount of mobility whenever they're in diagonals. See, because if they're next to each other, they block. They're only efficient in one direction. When they're set up diagonally in chains, they all maintain movement in four directions. That's what you want. The other neat thing about making diagonals is that they maintain 1 to 2 pieces on every rank and file. These are the ranks. These are the files, and these are the ranks. When you do that, your pieces are more efficient for black, and you control as many files and ranks as possible. And the other thing you want to concentrate on is keeping good shape. When you're playing to the edge, these pieces should not become too disconnected. You want to always kind of keep them connected in some shape or form. And even though the base camps are in a different shape, you'll be able to look at this and sort of apply the same concepts to these. Because bad shapes would be where the centerpiece becomes disconnected, or any piece really kind of becomes disconnected from the rest of the group. And that leads me to the next point. You don't want to isolate pawns on the edge of the board. It takes king and 2 men to attack this guy very easily, especially when he has another adjoining side to help him. And there's extensive illustrations of various of how these pieces are captured, and the game's over with isolated pawns. I also show on the videos to show how to play white, how to sort of try to force black to isolate the pawns on the edge of the board. So you always want to have your pawns supported by adjoining spaces, especially on the outermost ranks and files. And let's see, it's good to always also be aware of how many spaces, how many rows your structures cover. You know, obviously this is bad. It's 3 one way and 2 the other, but that's better as it is. This is also a better starting position than Tafl, because you know, Tafl is suggested to play like that as a starting position, but that leaves you 4 open files, and so that's really dangerous. This is really kind of neat. That's why these look a little odd, and most people don't really play this game very much because they kind of don't know about it, or there's no sites or boards to tell you to play this way. So, but this, ironically, this is the most historical version of the game, and that's why this piece is up here, is to make sure that these are closed. So now it's a half open file that he controls. So he controls a half open file, and white controls a half open file. Those are the most important files in the strategy. To see what I'm talking about, again, go to this series. Let's see. Then also the next thing black wants to do, just to continue my quick review, is that he wants to get out of check with the piece closest to the king. Whenever the king's putting you in check. Check is whenever he's just 1 move away from the edge. You want to. It's best to get out of check with the piece closest to the king. It's tighter. It's less options for white, as long as he can move there safely and he's not leaving a row open whenever a file or rank open whenever he's leaving. You're not doing something stupid like that. Then it's okay. And then some other things is that it's generally not a good idea to move the same piece sort of twice or in a row or too often, especially just kind of in the beginning. You're going to underdevelop your pieces. And again, I show examples of all this in this 11 video series. And then quickly to go over strategies for white. White can also create pawn chains. You know, I always kind of use this one as an example. Oops. You know, he's created these chains here, and he's getting these pieces out of the fight, and he's wanting to attack these squares here. Those what is it, 10 squares or so. And you know, he could do that. That's a closed game, and a closed game just means other where you're moving, all your pieces are connected. Whenever your pieces are connected, that's a closed game here. And white wants to be careful though, because closed games are slower games, and anytime that the longer the game continues, since white has basically half the pieces as black, he has to move the same pieces around more often, and so he's going to just by that fact, he's going to his pieces won't be as developed as. So as time goes on, the black side is going to be out developing you, and there's really nothing you can do about it. So you just got to remember that about playing a closed game. There's nothing wrong with closed game strategies, which I go over a couple in the openings on discussing this in that series. But and then an open game, of course, would be where the pieces do become disconnected. They just you know, move. See how this piece is disconnected now from the group, and those are faster games. see. So the structures, the closed and open structures look a little different than this series because the setup's a little different, but you'll hear me talk about it